But you get tired in your fights, you gotta start running these mountains. And I've never ran before any fights. My last fight with Charles Johnson, that was the first time I ever ran for any, even with wrestling, never ran when I wrestled.
Download the AllStar app. Make your picks for UFC fights, challenge your friends, level up and win prizes. Link in description. Get it now. Have you had a moment in your career where you were just in fight camp the whole year round, basically, but you didn't know? You're just overtraining?
Yes. All through COVID, when they were fighting in Abu Dhabi, I was just told, like, stay ready. And I just pretty much trained that whole year. I didn't fight though all the way. I didn't fight for a year, and I was just like, oh. Then I had my first fight, and I lost my first fight. I think it was just like I said, overtrained, but it wasn't even physical overtraining. It was just mental overtraining. I was just mentally exhausted.
For sure. If they're telling you stay ready, how many stay readies could they give you? You know what I mean?
Right. It was supposed to be my first fight in the UFC too.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was one of those.
How did you handle that loss, man? Because you mentioned that you were training for the whole year. They were telling you stay ready, and then finally give you a fight the next year.
Yeah.
And you go in there, you don't perform the way you want to. Like, what was it like to having to deal with that?
I think everyone's different. You know what I'm saying? I think everybody has a different maturity level, I should say. I think handling losses comes from how mature you are. And when I say mature, I don't mean in the citizen world. You know what I mean? I mean in the fight world. Like, how many losses have you had? How did you handle those losses? How many wins did you have? How did you handle your wins? How did you handle the fight game? How do you handle everything? So for me, I was actually pretty mature. Surprisingly, my first loss in the UFC, I think, because I've had 2 losses before then, and so I just told myself like not to let myself overthink. Don't overthink. Because once you go down the rabbit hole of shoulda, coulda, woulda, oh man.
Yeah, it seems like that has destroyed some fighters in the past where they were hit with a big obstacle, and then that shoulda, coulda, woulda, theories start to pop into your mind about why maybe you're doing everything right. It's just the result didn't come that time.
No,
and
for
then
sure.
you switch everything up, right?
Yep, that's what happens to. It's not even just fighting. I think it's just like sports in general. You see, I don't know if you watch. There's football at all. I don't watch football anymore, but I used to.
Yeah.
And you'll see quarterbacks like get out of college. They have a really great rookie year, and then the next couple of years they're not as good as a quarterback because they fall into this mold of running the clock out and doing what everyone else is doing instead of doing what they naturally were good at in the first place. So I just kind of try not to get in my own head and just remember, okay, you know what, this is the game, and that's how it is sometimes.
Yeah, you gotta be comfortable with that, and most people, they cannot. They go their whole life without being comfortable with like losing. I mean, it's shitty to say that you have to be a good loser to become a better winner.
It's true though.
It's
true though. But that's why I like fighting, because I think it's one of the most reflective things that you can relate to life. You know what I'm saying? Because it's the same thing in life. You have to fail at a lot of things in order to be successful at most. For me, I didn't really understand how money worked. So I used to be really bad at money. I'm a lot better at money now because I was so bad at money before.
What do you mean, like in
Spending,
saving it?
saving,
Or,
yeah,
okay.
Saving. You know what I'm saying? Like, no one told me how to save, and I always just like, okay, I just save this money that's sitting there in my account. Okay, that's kind of stupid. You know what I mean? I always thought that was stupid. But then I learned about like investing and creating new money with my money. You know what I'm saying? But then you learn how to invest, but you don't learn how to invest the right way. You know what I'm saying? You start with like all the stuff that everyone else is doing, and then you learn to invest the right way, and then you just build and build and build and build and build. And yeah, it's like now, you know, for me now, when I get paid from a fight, I'm like, oh yeah, I can't wait to invest in this, that, and the other thing. You know what I'm saying? Whereas before, I'll get paid and I'm like, oh yeah, man, I can't wait to go, go out to the clubs and take everyone out and blow some money. But now I'm like, ooh, I'm gonna definitely put some money down on this.
Yeah, yeah, man. It's the growth. To see fighters when they first start in the UFC, and then after like 5, 6 fights, it's completely
Yeah.
different. They become a completely different human being because they've been exposed to
Hmm.
so many different levels of the business side, especially. Not even just the training camps and stuff, but the business side.
That's why I tell people, man, if you're a UFC fighter and you're not living in Las Vegas, I don't know what you are doing. Or California, but Las Vegas, man, there's so much business to like it's fight capital of the world. I learned in the last I've lived here now for almost 2 years. It'll be 2 years in September, and I've learned so much already about the business side of things and how things work and how you know what I mean? Like, okay, so you mean if I do this, that, and the other thing, then this will come, and if I don't do that, then that won't come. Okay, got it.
What has, without revealing too much, man, I don't want to get into your portfolio or anything like that, but without revealing too much, what I mean, what has made you a little bit of money, a little bit of cash? Was it crypto? What was it?
Yeah, I mean, so yes, crypto, but no. For me, crypto is a long thing. So when I first started, I used to be like, oh man, I want to invest into all these different coins, this, that, and the other thing. But now that I'm older, I'm like, oh man, forget all these coins. I'm just gonna invest in a Bitcoin or Ethereum because at the end of the day, when the market crashes and you invest in all the smaller coins, you lose your money. But if you invest into like Bitcoin or something more stable, you're still in the game almost. You know what I'm saying? But I think it's the mindset of like I want to get rich quick. You know what I mean? Instead of I want to make a flip over in the future. You know what I mean? But not so much now. See, so now I invest. I want to invest in Bitcoin, but not for now. For the future, you know what I'm saying? I'm investing now for the future. I'm not investing now. I think the mindset that I've grown on is I used to invest now for now. Now I'm like, okay, I'm investing now for the future. What that means is, or what that looks like is, um, I ideally would like to get a couple sponsors here and there. You know what I'm saying? Put the sponsors on my podcast, right? So I have these sponsors. I say, hey, if you pay this, that, and the other thing, however much money, you can put the sponsor. You can put your logo on my podcast. You know what I'm saying? Now, some of these sponsors probably think, you know what? If I drop 10 grand on Ode Osbourne, I'm just gonna bet that 10 grand on his fight. You know what I'm saying? So he wins. Now I flip that. I make 20 grand. If the sponsors are smart. You know what I'm saying? Technically, we're not allowed to talk about it, but I'm not betting, so I don't give a shit. But if these sponsors are smart, they're you know what I mean. They're like, okay, I'm gonna give Ode Osbourne 10 grand. And I'm gonna bet that on him on his fight. He loses, then you know what I mean. At least I still make the money when he is running his podcast or when he's shouting me out on Instagram. At least I'm still making money this way. But if he wins, not only am I making money on social media, but I'm also betting on him on his fights. You know what I mean? So that's the you know what I mean. The I like to when I talk to certain sponsors and certain businessmen, I like to see where their mindset is. And when I get to know them and get to see how they move about things, that's when I'm like, okay, well let's talk.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. It's like, with the podcast,
Hmm.
a sponsor can invest in you, and if
Yes.
actually if you win, it's better, of course, if you win, it's better for everybody, but for them, it's better because you go on your podcast. Now more eyes are drawn to your podcast, and then more
Exactly.
people can see the sponsors. And,
Exactly.
like you said, you could shout them out on the show.
Yep.
It's just more exposure for them. I
Exactly.
think it's not a quick cash grab for them. It's like, well, yeah,
Mm-mm.
we're going to invest you for a little bit of time and see where it goes.
But the thing is, a lot of people mess up on the big detail. You have to execute for all of it to work. You know what I'm saying? So if I just go into UFC and I lose all the time, it's not gonna work. You know what I mean? You gotta execute. You gotta remember what pays your bills. So for me, fighting pays my bills. So when I'm training, all the other stuff like my podcast, sponsor hunts, all that stuff, they go on the back burner. Unless, unless they come to me. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, all that stuff is in the back burner, but now once you get done fighting, then you start on, okay, you know what? Let's see how I can brand myself more, you know what I mean? And I think for me personally, branding myself is like it's another job, but essentially, right? I would rather brand myself than somebody give me $50,000 because at the end of the day, that $50,000 nowadays in today's world, you know, it's not going to go very far. Now, branding yourself is a lifetime thing. You know what I'm saying? You brand yourself. Now you're making 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 sponsors that's paying you $50,000. That's just a random number I use. Not really 50, but yeah, branding myself has definitely been another thing that I've learned and how to utilize. Like, okay, it's not all about the money right now. The money will come later on. Right now it's about the hustle, making myself known. You know what I'm saying? Who is Ode Osbourne? You know what I mean? I want when people go and see me on TV, they're like, oh, that's Ode Osbourne. You know what I'm saying? So I do stuff like this where I color my hair. So anytime people see me, they're like, "Oh, Ode Osbourne." Why? Because I have color in my hair, and that's how they recognize me. Um, and people will do the "Ole Ole" chant, "Ole Ole Ole Ole," but they'll say "Ode Ode." That's another thing. Like I brand myself that way. When I walk out to fight, it'll go. The crowd will be like, "Ode Ode Ode Ode." So there's so many different ways, and this is just the beginning, man. I'm like, wait till I get into the matrix of it. I don't know what that's like yet because there's levels, and I'm not at that level yet. And that's another thing. You have to know what level you're at, and I'm not at the level yet where I truly can say that I've unlocked like the abilities to go like do this, that, and the other thing, and know where I'm gonna come out in the end. Like right now, I don't know where I'm coming out in the end. You know, but I know I'm on the right path.
Definitely, man. You making moves, and you're in your eighth. You're heading into your eighth UFC fight, man. A lot of guys don't even make it to their third, but you're
That's
in your
crazy that you
eighth,
said that. That's crazy to hear that.
and you're building your brand too at the same time, man. Everything's in motion, dude. Like
Yeah,
you're doing your thing.
yeah, man. That's crazy that you said that eighth fight. I'm just like, man. Like it felt like it was yesterday. I was about to head into my third fight.
Mhm.
And I'm like, man, I'm one and you know what I mean. I'm 1-2 or 1-1 going into my third fight.
Yeah, man. It's good to see the development, and of course we're gonna need to talk about the fighting. I mean, we got the mind of Ode Osbourne. Now we get the fighting portion
Oh,
of it.
I hate that part.
August August 5th, UFC Fight Night, Nashville. Um, why did they decide on this opponent though? You know what I mean? Ode, after you beat Charles Johnson, I felt like, okay, that's a good win in that division, man.
Mhm.
Like really not many people are gonna know the name Asu Almabaev. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
it's unknown, right?
yeah. I think he's trained. From what I know, he's trained with Shavkat. They're both from Kazakhstan. Um, but I don't know. Number one and number two. Um, at the end of the day, it don't really matter, right? You know, at the end of the day, I keep winning and things will go my way. So at the end of the day, I try not to think too much about, oh man, I don't want this guy, or oh, I want that guy, or you know what I'm saying? It's like whatever the UFC decides, that's what it is, and that's what I have to. You know what I mean? That's why I'm here. I'm here. The UFC likes, they do like that I accept anything they put in front of me. You know what I'm saying? They asked me to fight a guy in a couple weeks. I'm like, all right, yeah, let's do it. I don't really say no. Now, I'm definitely at that point now though where I will say no to a 2 week notice fight or a 3 week notice fight. You know what I'm saying? Before where I needed the money, yeah, I'll be like, yeah, let's do it. I need the money. But now I'm trying to be a little bit more smarter about that.
What do you think of the matchup?
I think it's a great matchup. You know what I'm saying? I think a lot of people think I'm just a striker, so I'm interested to show a little bit of what my past wrestling background can do.
Yeah, this guy's gonna definitely, give you a test because he has as much to prove, maybe even more than you do in this fight.
For sure, for sure, for sure. I think he's traditionally more of a grappler wrestler type of style. Very wild. But it's just another day at the office for me.
Yeah, 8 fights. This is your 8th fight, 9th fight counting the Contender Series.
Yeah.
And, like you're going to be fighting in front of a crowd in Nashville, which is going to be massive. I think Nashville is going to be pretty wild.
Mm-hmm.
And, entering the octagon for the first time, in the Apex is different from entering it with a crowd
Yeah.
screaming in your face and you
Yeah.
don't know what the hell they're talking about. Like from your experience, when you first entered the cage, was it different for you?
Was what different?
The debut, I mean, just like, oh, the UFC moment, because it could be big for him, I mean, we don't know yet.
I think I let it become different. Yeah. I let it become different with distractions of like, oh, this is the UFC, when I should have just been like, oh, you know what, this is just another fight. What makes it so big is just it's the organization. But really, if you think about it in layman's term, it's just another fight that you're in the cage with another person. Nothing changes in that moment.
And you mentioned earlier that you're almost at the 2-year mark in Las Vegas, and you've
Mm.
made some changes while out there. You've become a businessman as well while out there. uh
I wouldn't say all
you know
that.
But
I wouldn't
like
say all
you're
that.
you're much more involved than a lot of fighters, man. I
Yeah.
guarantee you, like 85% of fighters don't even do what you do. Like they're not
Yeah.
thinking like that at all. But being at the UFC PI, right? Being able to go there every day and utilizing their service. I heard that they even provide like sports psychiatrists. Have you worked with them?
Oh, the sports psychiatrist? Yeah, they
Yes.
provide everything.
Yeah.
Strength and conditioning, um, physical therapy, free food. You get to eat you get breakfast, lunch, dinner. You know what I'm saying? They provide it all. So
But I think like probably the one that probably would cost the most that fighters usually put at the last of their list would be working with like a mind coach or a
yeah,
psychologist. How has that,
Micah and
changed
Micah,
it
his
up?
name. Oh, I'm sorry.
How has that kind of altered your thinking?
So his name is Micah. He's really, really amazing. He used to play for the White Sox, and he too went through the same mental struggles as you know what I mean. So, and he tells you, he talks to you about that. But he really is amazing, man. Micah is such an amazing mental coach. I definitely utilized him when I first moved to Vegas. New environment, didn't know anybody, didn't move here with anyone. Came here by myself, and you know what I mean. I just wanted to make sure. It was my last fight on my contract. I lose that fight, I'm out the UFC. So it was just one of those things where I wanted to make sure that I had no stones that was left unturned. You know, I was trying to go over every stone. Like, okay, did I get this? Did I get that?
With my memory, right? And speaking with you, I believe like a couple fights after you got to Vegas,
Uh huh.
and to speaking with you now, like you seemed more tense back then compared to now. like talking with you today, you're just more relaxed. I don't know if because you're tired, but it's like you're more relaxed and you're more
I
like,
appreciate that.
you know, like it's different. There's a different vibe about you. You know what I mean? This is what I see.
Yeah, I feel it too. You know what I mean? I feel the I I'm more real. Whereas, you know, as much as I told myself back then, oh man, I really don't care about what people think. The back of my that was kind of a lie. The back of my head, I really did care. You know, and I think now I don't really care as much. Um, and I understand what my real purposes are. You know what I mean? Whereas before, right? Okay, I used to care about things like I want to have money just to have money, just so I can buy a car, buy a nice house, do this, that, and the other thing. Now I'm like, okay, I don't want to do any of that anymore. I want to be able to, you know, support my, you know, my wife and kids. I don't have a wife and kids, you know, I have a girl, but I want to be able to support my future wife and kids. You know what I'm saying? Maybe someday, open up a foundation, a youth group, and you know, do more in the world where I can give people what I didn't have and stuff like that. And I'm seeing now that this is not a fairy tale. This is real life. I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's just how that's how it's gonna come out. This is not a fairy tale. This is real life.
Well, for certain people, living the UFC dream can be a fairy tale to them,
Yeah,
and they
yeah.
could get caught up in that, right? And then that dream might get extinguished or blown up within a year. You never know. You know what I mean? It's just a fight game. It's unpredictable. But for yourself, you know what I mean? How has that transitioned over to like your training and maybe the organization of your training camps? Has that changed throughout the
Oh,
last 2 years?
most definitely. First, I couldn't have done anything without God. You know, when I started really putting my faith in God, everything changed for me because I really understood that I really had. Okay, it's gonna sound weird. I understood that I didn't really have control over my own life, even though I do. But I just meant like my destiny. You know, um, things are gonna happen, and that's just the way it is. You know what I'm saying? And so I changed the way I thought about things, and I just was like, how well, you know, since how can I improve as a person? What can I do? You know, and I left the gym that I was at before. Now I'm with Dewey Cooper, and some of the things that Dewey implemented was he's like, you know what, you get tired, and you know what I love about Dewey Cooper. If you've never talked to Dewey, man, he's one of the realest dudes you'll ever meet. You know, he's so real. He's like, hey man, like we got to start running these mountains. You get tired in your fights. You have extreme abilities, you know, but you get tired in your fights, you gotta start running these mountains. I've never ran before any fights. My last fight with Charles Johnson, that was the first time I ever ran for any, even with wrestling, never ran when I wrestled. So, you know, Dewey put me on the running. He had my striking looking sharp. He had my mindset much better. And he just, Dewey Cooper is, he's a different human being, you know. He don't sugarcoat nothing. He gonna tell you exactly what it is all the time. And I love that about him, you know. And he's gonna give you 100% of what he's got every day. And he expects nothing less than perfection. You know, everything's gotta be like a little bit above perfect, you know, because in a fight, it's not going to be perfect. You know what I'm saying? So he wants you to give 120 so that you can give maybe 92 or 89. You know what I'm saying? But if you give 100, then in a fight, you're going to give like shit 40 maybe, you know? So.
That's interesting, man, that you never ran until the last camp and Dewey
No
was the
one told
guy
me
that
to.
got you to do it.
No one, my last gym never made us run and never talked
Mhm.
about having us run. You know what I'm saying? So if you don't talk about running, I'm not going to run.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you don't. There's a saying. There's a guy from the UFC PI. His name is what's his name? Clint. His name is Clint. Sorry, Clint, if you're watching this. So Clint, it's been a long day. Clint, he said to me before. He said this multiple times. You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah. Simple.
I never ran before, so
Yeah.
I didn't know what I wasn't missing.
And now you do, and
Yeah.
now you're doing it more. Do you
And
feel like, damn, like
yeah,
this
like
changes everything?
yeah, and now I'm like, man, I need to get this running. Like I need to go, hit this
Oh,
mountain so I can get my run in, and then I know it sucks, but after that run, I'm like, man, I'm so glad I got that in. Now I can, you know what I mean? I can, elongate my cardiovascular and my threshold and push past those barriers. Okay, let's go.
there you go. And August 5th, man, what are you expecting out of yourself in this fight?
What am I expecting out of myself? That's an interesting question. What am I expecting out of? I'm expecting to win. I don't really know how else to answer that. Yeah, I'm expecting to go in there and do what I do best. Um, I don't know how I'm gonna win. If you'd asked me this again 2 years ago, I would have told you, yeah, I'm gonna win by knockout or submission. I'm like, I can't tell you. I have no idea. I'm gonna feel it when it happens. I'm gonna take it.
There you go. August 5th, UFC Fight Night, Las Vegas, Nashville. You're going to be in front of a crowd. Ode, it's about time to be back in front of the crowd. Thank you so much, man, for the time. And yeah, man, very interesting conversation. We just got into it. I don't even know how
Yeah.
it happened, but we did. I love it. I love it that way.